Well, we got breaking news in the Abrego Garcia case on Wednesday. He's not going anywhere, at least through October. He's become the poster child for everything that's wrong and unjust in the Trump administration concerning their immigration policy, their abuse of power, and they're trying to pulverize this individual rather than just give him the due process that he's entitled to determine whether he should stay or go in this country. Should he stay in this country with his U.S. citizen wife and children, or should he be removed to somewhere else? Due process is the process we use to determine that, not coercion, not vindictive prosecution. And now Judge Xinis has had it, and she set the evidentiary hearing for October to determine what and how the Trump administration has handled the taking into custody again Abrego Garcia. Now, he'll remain in custody, but at least in the United States, pursuant to Judge Xinis' order, through this October hearing. That's the briefing schedule. She will then hear from the Department of Justice and from Homeland Security and from Immigration as to why Abrego Garcia should be removed to a third country. Should that third country be Uganda? Hold that point. I'll come back to that in a minute. Or has the Trump administration have such unclean hands? That's a doctrine we use in court, that they have forfeited their right to try to process him and remove him from the country, that he is now a political asylum seeker. His lawyers have let the judge know they want to fall on her mercy and have her use her equitable powers to allow him to stay in this country, given all the abuse that's been heaped upon him by the Trump administration. And she has the power to do that. Now, they'll argue on the Trump side that, this is immigration issues. This should go to an immigration judge. No. They have, as far as I'm concerned, and I think the law is concerned, Trump has forfeited his right to continue in an administrative immigration process because of the abuse, vindictive prosecution, prosecutorial misconduct, and all that has occurred and has been heaped upon Abrego Garcia. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the MeidasTouch Network and Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the subscribe button here and over on Legal AF, the YouTube channel. How did we get here? Abrego Garcia finally returned after several months of defiance by the Trump administration, comes back from having been tortured in El Salvador after being illegally deported there, comes back in May to Tennessee to stand charges that were fabricated, obviously, by the Trump administration about human trafficking or human something in Tennessee. They then, after they brought him back, they kept him in federal detention center in Tennessee. A federal magistrate judge ruled that he needs to be released from federal detention related to his criminal case because the criminal case is so weak and there are no grounds to keep him inside of a federal detention center. He got sent back to Maryland on Friday with an order to return and telephone in to ICE in Baltimore, Maryland, where he's from, to check in. Judge Xinis in Maryland, who presides over his constitutional case, his due process case, also said once he's released, he is allowed to stay out and not be picked up again by immigration. But that didn't happen. On Monday, he was called in for a phony interview his lawyers were ready for. They then had a press conference. Abrego Garcia spoke to the people and then went inside for the interview and hasn't been seen since. He got taken back into custody by ICE. At the time, they wouldn't tell the lawyers where he was, which detention center he was, even if he was in the United States at that moment. They filed an emergency petition for writ of habeas corpus, which is what you do when somebody has been illegally, impermissibly incarcerated or detained. That gets right to the judge. Under the rules of Maryland federal court, once that petition was filed, the person cannot be moved for 48 hours. That gave us some breathing room. That's sort of the Abrego Garcia rule. It was actually generated by the chief judge in Maryland because of Abrego Garcia. Judge Xinis had the time. She called the parties together on Monday in the afternoon. And by the time she was done on Monday, she had blocked with an absolutely forbidden, her language, instruction to the Department of Justice and Homeland Security and ICE. You are not to remove him from the United States or even really from her jurisdiction. They agreed, allegedly. We'll find out. She then asked for a briefing schedule to be filed by yesterday. Having looked at the briefing schedule, She has set the evidentiary hearing, the trial on the issue, to happen in October and has ordered that he remain in the United States. She doesn't want to hear about any accidental, illegal deportations or removals again. He stays in the United States through the end of October, or through the October hearing, at which time witnesses will be put on the stand about many aspects of the abuse heaped on Abrego Garcia. For instance, just the things we know about. He was offered a deal just before he left Federal Detention Center in Tennessee, in which he would be given, he would have to plead guilty to the 2 criminal charges in Tennessee, and he would be able to go to Costa Rica. When he said no, he wants to fight the criminal charges in Tennessee because he's not guilty, and that's his constitutional right. And he actually has a motion pending in Tennessee to have the whole indictment dismissed for vindictive prosecution against him, because this has all been punishment for him not complying, for him fighting to return to the United States. When he said no, they said, fine, you're going to Uganda. Now, why Uganda? Look, there's a president in Uganda, a strongman president dictator since the 1980s, apparently, named President Museveni. And, Trump loves his dictator strongmen. And so there is a working theory that Trump had Museveni curry favor with him to give him some trade deals in return for taking people like Abrego Garcia. So there's an unholy trade deal going on, potentially with the president in Uganda. This all got into the court with Judge Xinis, who's not happy. She's the judge that they illegally sent him to El Salvador and then refused to bring him back, where he was tortured upon arrival. And it took a 9-0 ruling by the United States Supreme Court, and even then the Trump administration was defiant. So she starts from a position of not believing anything the Department of Justice and Donald Trump says. It's a good thing that his lawyers now have the time, another 6 weeks, 8 weeks, to prepare their case. And what they're going to ask for, based on this new reporting, is that they're going to ask for asylum be granted by Judge Xinis as a remedy for the abuse and vindictive prosecution and unclean hands that the Trump administration comes to court with. And I believe she has that power. Now they're going to argue, no, it's an immigration issue. Immigration Naturalization Act goes to an administrative law judge. Federal judges, no, federal judges have superpowers, including the inherent authority to right wrongs and to fix abuse. And if she finds the only way I can fix this abuse is, and the unclean hands demonstrated by the Trump administration in their handling of Abrego Garcia, is to grant him asylum, she might be granting him asylum in this process. We'll follow it more here on MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. I'm glad you're here. Help us on Legal AF Substack, where I post all the filings. I do live recordings along with other contributors twice a day. We can kind of come together in a huddle, 3,000 people on Legal AF Substack. Help us there as well. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.